special feature this week focusing in on the queen of lo-fi, the Californian-based artist Azalia Snail. Her new LP, Power Lover, was released only yesterday. I caught up with her a few days ago to talk about the LP.
Hello. Goodbye. Resonance 104.4 FM.
Your new LP, Power Lover, has been released just yesterday. Your first solo LP since Neon Resistance. The marked difference between the two seems to be the lack of vocals this time round. What's led you to an instrumental LP?
Well, I've always dabbled with instrumentals. I always put at least like one instrumental on every album, and I'm very fond of them. And I think I was afraid, in a way, to do an all-instrumental album. I don't know why, but it just seemed like such the right time. I feel like I could express myself in a way that didn't need, lyrics. And I think it's a great way to kind of, put on a record and you can do your housework or drive in the car and kind of space out. So I love the idea of it. And I'm a huge fan of those early, instrumental ambient albums.
At what point did you realize then that it was going in that direction? Was it something that dawned on you slowly, or?
Yeah, I think it was during the pandemic that I started I got out. I have quite a few of these old omnichords, which I bought for next to nothing. And now they're, I guess, collector's items. Wouldn't you know it, right? But, and I just started experimenting with these different pieces. And as I went on, I thought, you know what? I usually am such a big fan of lots and lots and lots of layers. But I just thought, I'm going to do something a little bit more minimalist. And I think I'm just going to skip the lyrics and see what happens.
So would you say it's an album of atmospheres? And if so, what are the predominant ones?
Well, it's definitely the feeling of isolation, impending doom, a world gone mad. However, also with the hopes of some new beginnings, because I do think that when the world kind of gets very, very downward in a downward spiral, then really the only way to go is up. And I do believe, fortunately, there are some kind of young artists out there interested in experimental sounds and doing things that aren't just copycat of, a bunch of music that's come before. So I do have hope, and I want to express that in the album. But it is a very tough time right now, all over the world, I think.
The album comes with a tagline, power of love over love of power.
Yes. I thought I was coming up with a new concept, but Dan West, my husband and partner, he said, I think Jimi Hendrix said something like that once. So sure enough, leave it to good old Jimmy, who expounded upon, and I won't be able to exactly quote it, but maybe we can look it up. And he said, I think the world will be in a better place when mankind sees that the power of love is so much stronger than the love of power. And it's so simple, yet it kind of says everything, right?
It's obviously been a tumultuous few years since we last saw each other in person. It's not just been the pandemic that you're referring to here in terms of turbulent times. How does it feel in America living, a life of music at the moment?
I'm very lucky because I am pretty isolated. Dan and I live up on this hill that's sort of on the very, very northeastern corner of Los Angeles. And I kind of just gaze out as we're talking. I'm just gazing out into nature and birds. And we have wild bunnies and, lots of plants. And so I do feel like I do need to be in my own little world to escape the madness. So it's hard. You go out into the world and right away you've got the crazy, bombastic drivers and the stress of just practical crap that we have to deal with in life. And, it's been really tough for a lot of people finding work right now. I mean, we went in this town, we went right from the pandemic almost immediately into film strikes. So the film industry affects almost every business, and people are freaking out. And it's intense, but you know, I've always turned to art. I mean, I couldn't possibly do anything else with my life. I just was destined, I guess, to do this. And even though I'm, you know, teetering underground, I do find it a complete salvation. So, yeah, I just immerse myself completely in art, and it saves me. It's always saved my soul.
If it's the power of love that's going to save us in the end, where does music? What's role is music playing in that?
Well, music is, of course, the international language, and I think especially with instrumental albums, you know, you can listen to this from anywhere in the world, not just my music, of course, but music does have that power to make you feel alive and floating and energized and inspired. I mean, there's nothing like it. I love art. I mean, you know, painting, art, and I love film and everything else. But there's something in particular about music that is, I think, the easiest way to make yourself feel better. And it's essential, isn't it? I mean, every, you know, dodo brain, you know, from every dodo brain to the most intellectual of humans can appreciate music. There's nothing else like it. And if somebody says religion, well, I say bah humbug to that.
You have a launch party for the LP taking place over in the States on the coast there, on the West Coast. Can you give us the details? I know we have listeners on the West Coast.
Yeah, there's this kind of newish space in Pasadena, kind of the northern part of Pasadena, which is about 20 minutes from where I live. And it's called Healing Force of the Universe. And I kind of found it on the internet, just kind of browsing through what other people are up to. And I thought, what is this place with this fantastic name? And I just went over there, and actually a friend of mine, Heather McIntosh, is playing, and she's going to be playing as well with me on April 14th. And I went there, and it's just really great. It reminds me of the places I played in the 90s a lot. It's a daytime record store. They have music classes for little tiny children. They have this great space with a wonderful sound system, PA. And I thought, oh my God, this is perfect for my record. And so I went over there, and there's a young manager named Austin. And I kind of went up there and said, hey, I have a new album. And I told him a little bit about it, that it's a guy from Olivia Tremor Control, John Karen Fernandez. And he said, oh, okay, because he knew that band, right? And so then I just said, I played with Stereolab, and I named a few other bands that are friends of mine. And he said, oh, okay. And then he got out his calendar and booked it, which is kind of amazing, right? Because you don't always expect that they're going to give you a date right away.
You mentioned there teaching children, and I recall a conversation with yourself and Dan West regarding that very role that you play for the community in America. And in fact, one of the bands on the bill is a band, Frieda's Roses, who you are a case in question.
Yes, yeah, we did songwriting classes with them. Dan taught Greta Fannin guitar and piano, and she's an incredible musician. She's, I think, just 19 now, and he was teaching her since she was around 11, I think. So she's amazing. There's Ava Miller, a vocalist, who's also a great lyricist and playing bass. And then Ryan Finney, this great drummer, who was also part of our song-along songwriting classes. So yeah, it's wonderful that they're going to be playing, because there's not a lot of all ages places either, and so they can play there because there's no alcohol served.
just mentioned LoveyDove. You had an LP out, Rude Dogs, only a couple of years back, actually. That was full of vocals. Anything you can particularly tell me about the track Landlocked Mind?
Yeah, well, that's another story of people that will not open up their narrow-minded minds to think about the bigger picture. I find that, especially, it's where you are too in the UK, that a lot of people are like, well, I'm okay. I don't need to vote. I don't need to worry about who my representatives are. I'm going to be okay, and that's, a little bit of privilege. I don't know if it's just necessarily white privilege, but it's definitely privilege of a certain kind of person who can say, hey, I'm going to be okay. I don't have to worry about what's happening. And so Landlocked Minds is about that kind of person. And that was a fun video to make, too. It's kind of like people falling off the cliff, despite themselves. I did it with all these found graphic images, graphic design images, I should say. And that's what that's about. The whole album, Rude Dogs, DAWGS, is about people that aren't very pleasant in this world. And that was a little bit more of a punky album for us, because the one right before that, Showstopper, was full of pop and pleasantry, and that was, a pre-Trump United States world. And things changed quite quickly come 2016, right? And then you guys had your own version of that with good old Boris, right?
You've got, obviously, an election coming up towards the end of the year. What's your feelings regarding that and how that might pan out?
Man, it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, I was a Bernie Sanders gal. I'm not going to say a Bernie bro, but I was a Bernie gal. And I love his concepts of, progressive policies, and every person deserves a fair shot in this life. And, to my pleasant surprise, Joe Biden took a lot of those ideas and actually made them happen. And I think even Bernie said, go get him, Joe. He was the safer guy. And, I'm not saying he's perfect, but, people are saying, and this is such a good concept, I think, a president or a representative doesn't have to be perfect. They don't have to be, they don't have to do and be everything you want them to be, but at least they represent decency and goodness and positivity. And I think Biden is a really good person. I love his wife, Jill, and I'm horrified that it's going to be, they say, a close election. I mean, we've got decency versus depravity. That's really what it boils down to. So, and I love when people say, but, the Gaza situation. Well, if El Dumpo, as I call him, was elected, he would just want to blow up the entire country of Gaza. So I don't even know what people are thinking with all this protesting. I mean, of course, nobody in their right mind wants war. And Israel, I don't mean to get too political, DeXter, I'm sorry. But, to make a long story short, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure democracy is saved and make sure we elect the blue team, as I call them. And I just hope that people really will wake up and realize that we are on the precipice of a very dangerous situation.
You mentioned earlier the fact that you were recalling the days how music was in the 90s. Obviously, it's a good number of years that you've been devoting your life to music. How do you, with a band like Frieda's Roses, who are young and up and coming generation, what's the most key bit of advice, or do you think the goalposts have moved so much that it's kind of difficult to give advice?
I think it's really always the same, is in that if you love music and you love it more than anything in the world, you've got to do it. And you can't worry about the end result, right? I mean, I feel that way about everything in life. You put it out there, you devote yourself to it. You have, time for other things. I think devoting yourself or going out into nature is so essential. It will, another thing that will save your soul. And I always say that nature is the least likely thing to disappoint you. I mean, with the exception of maybe a tornado or an earthquake, etc. But, so the young artists of today, they just need to do it because they absolutely love it.
Looking at Power Lover, was there a particular track that kind of was the start of the whole project?
Well, first it was Take Away His Power. And I wrote that on the first day of the war against Ukraine, when Putin first attacked Ukraine. And I thought, oh my God, if only we could take away his power, right? Because that's what it's all about. And so that was, I think, the first track that kind of started that. However, I was doing other pieces. Don't Get Too Close to Me was obviously about the pandemic. And I think one of the first songs I wrote during the pandemic was Stay Put Human, which was kind of a little novelty song, which I think is still on my Bandcamp. It's like an old-fashioned Azalia Snail, kind of a little playful kiddie song in a way, Stay Put Human, And then, from there, I just have, dozens of these pieces, and I picked out, when I had the luck to go over to Adam Lazis' Studio Red, and he said, hey, let's just take about a dozen of your songs and we'll record them here. And then let's decide what to do with them. And then Dan West came in and played that amazing bass. He's just so perfect for this. And then my friend Alan Sparhawk, he's been on my mind so much. I mean, I've always loved the band Low. But when Mim, passed away, it's just hard for me to even think about it. So I know he wants to stay busy with music, and I thought, let me ask Alan to play guitar on Zap You of That Hate, which is another kind of track that kind of says it all, right? If I could take a magic wand and zap people of that hate and racism and all the other terrible traits that when people are teetering on the brink of good versus evil, and they get into that evil thing, like why would you want to live your life like that? So that was another track. And then if you just look at all the titles of Power Lover, it's all about the pandemic, war, and the kind of impending doom that I'm still determined to fight against, by the way. off that hate.
Now that the new album is out, what's next?
Well, I'm going to start recording the next one, which I think may follow in its course. This might be the start of my, early Eno ambient kind of instrumental pieces. So I'm working on that. I've been doing a lot of videos, so little promo videos and then longer form videos. One just debuted this week for the song Don't Get Too Close to Me. And Dan thought of a concept where we're just sitting on the couch far away from each other, and we end up getting closer, and then we break apart. And then I said, and let's insert a disco ball, right? And so we're kind of passing this disco ball, and that's the representation of what used to be, going out and dancing and being entertained. But now we're in isolation, and we have to just be careful of getting too close to people, right? So what else is next? I'm working on my memoir. It's a long, arduous process, and I think I have a name for it. I think I'm going to call it Hit You With a Flower. And of course, that's my little tip of the hat to Lou Reed, who was my neighbor in New York. And I was doing a podcast called Out of My Shell, and I might bring that back. But other than that, playing out where I can. I'm hoping to get back to the UK, hopefully sometime in the next 6 months to a year. So just got to keep doing my thing. I'd love to talk about Robert Schneider from the Apples in Stereo and Elephant Six, and Ben Lee, two gentlemen that really encouraged me to kind of get back on the burner with music. I mean, there were times where I thought, why should I bother? Who cares? I mean, I have been pretty underground, pretty much my entire, 30-some years of making music. And Ben Lee, who lives sometimes in Los Angeles, sometimes in Australia. He has a podcast called Weirder Together, and he interviewed me. And he said, hey, I have this kind of little label called Weirder Together. Do you have a song you want to put out? And I had just kind of finished, or just was working on Zap You of That Hate, as well as the other tracks. And I said, yeah, sure, we could put this one out. So I just want to give a shout out to him, along with Ione Skye, his wife and co-podcaster. And then Robert Schneider, after I saw the Elephant Six documentary, I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but it's wonderful. It's all about a bunch of kids that got together and made these records. And I was around at that same time in the 90s, and they launched the career of Neutral Milk Hotel and Olivia Tremor Control and, Apples and Stereo and, just a bunch of other bands. And I never asked to be on their label, and it didn't, never happened. But Robert, turns out, is this huge fan of mine, which I didn't know. And so he's been really encouraging me and hooked me up with the Cloud Recordings label, which is John Fernandez's label. And I just want to give him a shout out. And to listeners, don't always just celebrate the people that are already famous. I mean, there's huge artists right now, and I'm not even going to mention them because they don't need me to mention them. And they're always getting all the kudos and all the rewards and all the Facebook posts. And I've always been somebody that celebrates the underground artists. It's something that I've always been very proud of. I mean, I've loved bands that some of them started getting bigger, but I just love the idea of celebrating underdogs, and it's something that you yourself does. And it's really important. And again, Dan West, he has a new record coming out called Hedonistic Pillow, which I think you'll dig. And again, we just want to just remember to put that on your plate, is to recognize artists that don't always get all the glory. It's kind of cool, right? It's like a treasure hunt. Like, when I was a kid, I would dig into all these magazines, and I was getting the British imports, like Melody Maker and Sounds, and God, there's so many others. But I was always digging for what's next, or what's not as popular, and what can I find that will really turn me on, and it'll be my little secret, So I think that's just an important thing to note and to celebrate.
Try no tears and all
You are tuned in to Resonance FM, a not-for-profit, community-based radio station. We all do it for the love, and if you love what you hear, you can help keep us afloat. Please go to resonancefm.com, go to the donate page, whereby all will be revealed, and any sum, large or small, is always more than welcome. And of course, there's also the chance to contribute to the Donate Your Voice project, free of charge, but helping Resonance stay afloat. Go to resonancefm.com to find out more. Before that, we were enjoying a special feature with the artist Azalia Snail. During the feature, we heard a number of tunes, a few of them off of the new LP, POWERLOVER, but then also a couple of others. I'll list them now. We heard Take Away His Power by Azalia Snail from the new LP. Then we heard Frieda's Roses with Beast, one of the bands joining Azalia at the launch party. Then we heard LoveyDove and Landlocked Minds, Azalia's collaboration with her husband and partner Dan West. Then we heard two more tracks from off the album, namely Zap You of That Hate and Don't Get Too Close to Me. Check out the videos, as Azalia mentioned during the feature. And the last of the tracks was Dan West in his Danimal mode. New Century, that's a world exclusive airing taken from his forthcoming LP, Hedonistic Pillow. Thank you so much to Azalia for taking time out to talk with me, and I very much look forward to reading the memoir, Hit Me With a Flower. Now on next Saturday's show, Saturday the 13th.